What's going on, guys? It's Zach here, bringing you guys another fantasy football video. And this one, we're going to be going over the Week 2 preseason recap, where I'll be recapping every single NFL game that happened this past weekend, and going over what I think matters, what I think you guys need to know happened in those games, and understand what's going to impact fantasy. So, obviously, all you guys don't have the time to watch every single preseason game, or even read through synopses of all of them. So, hopefully, I can help truncate all that information for you guys and give you guys just the little parts of it that are relevant for you guys. Really break it down and make sure you guys are up to date as possible going into your drafts without spending all of that time watching all these games and all that. So yeah, I'm really getting excited for football here. We're in mid to late August. Probably middle of draft season for you guys. Some of you guys maybe even drafted already. Some of you guys probably have drafts coming up this next weekend and the week after that. So going to be a super exciting next couple of weeks. Then we got football here. So super excited. Really love getting into this stuff. And yeah, with that, let's just get into the first game here for you guys. So the first game that happened this last weekend was the Browns at Eagles. To start us off there for the Browns, DTR played quite well. He's likely going to make the roster as the third quarterback for the Cleveland Browns. He is a pretty quality prospect, I think. I think he's a guy that if you're in like a deep dynasty league is worth a look. Obviously, Deshaun Watson is the starting quarterback for the Cleveland Browns, but it's nice to see him play well so far in the preseason. Cedric Tillman, the Browns' third-round draft pick this offseason and the first draft pick that they made this season because they didn't have a first or second-round draft pick, played extremely well. He's been really good all offseason. A lot of people are really excited about him, and I do expect him to see the field pretty early on in the season. There's a pretty wide open opportunity for him to actually potentially eventually take on that number 2 wide receiver role in this offense. I personally am not much of a believer in Elijah Moore. I think we know what Donovan Peoples-Jones is at this point, so there's an opportunity there for Cedric Tillman. Obviously, I'm not banking on it, and he's not a guy that you need to be drafting and redraft right now, but he's just a name to know. Maybe things will show up well for him down the stretch. And then Austin Watkins, another later guy for them, played a really good game, had over 100 receiving yards, and looked really good. So just another name to know. For the Eagles, Marcus Mariota struggled quite a bit. He looked even worse than he did last season in Atlanta, and it could be an issue just knowing that, last season the Eagles actually played pretty well, even in the couple games where Jalen Hurts missed. Gardner Minshew was able to hold down the fort for them, really keep them afloat in terms of making them a stable offense. I don't know if that's exactly going to be the case this season, so I'd be a little bit more concerned about the Eagles' pass catchers if something were to happen to Jalen Hurts, but obviously I'm not going to project that. No real cause for concern, but just something to keep in the back of your mind. For the running backs for the Philadelphia Eagles, DeAndre Swift got the day off here, further pretty much clarifying that he is going to be the starting running back for this team. A bunch of beat reporters out of Philadelphia have said that, in general, it seems like Kenneth Gainwell is going to be the guy that's out there for the 2 and 4 minute offense, and then you're going to have Swift and Rashad Penny splitting first and second down work. It kind of means that this is really just going to be a really muddy backfield, not one that I'm really targeting at all. I do think that there's a lot of talent on this backfield. DeAndre Swift is quite good. I don't have any problem taking him like the 9th, 8th round. But it's just something that I don't want to be drafting him with the intention of needing to start him week 1. I want to see how things play out for the Eagles, and just really could be a really messy backfield this season. Keep an eye out, though. It is technically possible we could see Rashad Penny get cut. I don't really expect that to happen, but he really hasn't looked that great this offseason. He had a couple opportunities to really break runs in the game this last week, and really just didn't look like he had that same level of explosiveness that he's had in years past. A little bit concerned that maybe he's just lost a step after all the injuries. So I would be prioritizing Swift among any other running back in Philadelphia right now, but I think it's just going to be pretty messy this season. The next game here is going to be the Giants at the Panthers. The Giants' starting offense looked really good this week. It was one of my main takeaways from this week of preseason, is just how really talented they looked on offense, how well put together. I will note that Saquon Barkley did not play in this one, but they really are just very pass-heavy offense in this one. I believe they threw the ball 9 times out of like 11 total plays on their first drive. Darren Waller was the clear focal point. He ended up with 4 targets, had 3 catches for 30 yards. Could have pretty easily caught that 4th pass as well, and he just looked really good. It's making me sort of think that maybe I've just been a little bit too low on Darren Waller this offseason. I've been pretty much fading him so far, and although I still think all of my concerns are valid and that I do still think this Giants offense could struggle a lot this season, it has been several years since we've seen an elite Darren Waller. I think we do need to realize that there is a world that exists this season where Darren Waller really does push for that number 2 tight end overall spot this season, and it does sort of make sense if you want to be drafting him like the 7th round. I totally understand that upside shot. In addition, for the Giants, we did see Jalen Hyatt make a really nice deep catch. He also had a drop in this one, so he's sort of just been boom or bust. I do expect him to eventually get more snaps in this offense, and he could give them a bit of a more explosive, really just a level up that this offense has been looking for. In the meantime, though, it does look like the starting wide receivers for this team are going to be Darius Slayton, Isaiah Hodgins, and Paris Campbell. Paris Campbell looks like he's going to be pretty involved as well. He's a guy you could be drafting pretty late if you want. On the Panthers side of the ball, their offensive line struggled again. I think it's time to be a little bit worried about their pass protection. In this one, it was very clear that Adam Thielen, Jonathan Mingo, and DJ Chark are the 3 wide receivers that are going to be starting for them. Adam Thielen effectively operating as their large slot wide receiver. I think that in general, I'm pretty much fading Adam Thielen here. I don't really see any real upside, and I do think that you could take shots on both Chark and Mingo, although I am concerned because both those guys are probably going to have to win down the field, and if this offensive line is struggling as much, we could see just really limited opportunities for those guys. Miles Sanders missed this game again. We likely won't see him this preseason due to a lingering hamstring injury. I'm not really all that worried about it. I still love the value of Miles Sanders right now in the 5th round. He's a guy that I'm more than happy to be drafting where he's going right now. Next game here is going to be the Bengals at the Falcons. This one was pretty fun. We finally got to see our first action for Bijan Robinson in the preseason, and he's just really good. His first career touch went for it's about a 12-yard run, but he looked really good. He made a defender look very silly on it. He's just a really elite player. He's going to be really fun this season. He also made a really nice one-handed catch. He had 5 touches in the one drive he had for a total of 27 yards. Bijan Robinson is going to be a focal point of this Falcons offense, and if you want to take him early in the first round, I have no problem doing it. He's just going to be elite, and honestly, he'll probably be the 101 in fantasy drafts just next season. In addition to that, we saw Pitts in London each make some good plays. Pitts, however, did only play on 9 of 17 snaps that Desmond Ridder played. I don't really know if I want to read into that. I'm concerned because of the history with Arthur Smith not really utilizing Kyle Pitts the way he should. In addition, the Falcons do have Jonnu Smith on the roster now, who Arthur Smith coached in Tennessee. There's just some concern there. I still think Kyle Pitts is a fine, later round, middle to later round flyer at the tight end position, a guy that does obviously have that upside, but I don't find myself drafting him at all. I'm just too concerned about this offense and too concerned about really the potential usage concerns as well. For the Bengals, they really didn't play anybody. Chase Brown did score a touchdown, and we did see Chris Evans operate as the third down back. I think that we're probably going to see situations where Chris Evans comes in as the third and long back, potentially even the 2-minute drill. He could sort of take over some of the snaps that we saw Samaje Perine taking last season, and then Chase Brown would probably be the one that would benefit the most from an injury to Joe Mixon. However, Joe Mixon did avoid any legal troubles. He was ruled not guilty in any of his civil suits going on, so I think he should be a pretty safe pick, although I do think that he's maybe going to get a little bit less third down work than a lot of people are expecting, just because Chris Evans will be involved in that role. Next up, we've got the Jaguars at the Lions. In this one, it was pretty fun to see Tank Bigsby be given a full role. He had 13 carries for 70 yards in this one. He looked great. He's one of my favorite late-round draft picks in fantasy drafts this season. He's a guy that's going to be involved for the Jaguars, and they've already said he'll probably accumulate more touches and a larger role in the offense over the course of the entire season. He's going to be a guy that's probably getting the goal line work. He's a talented guy and a good offense, and if something happened to Travis Etienne, he'd be an absolute league winner. For the Lions side of the ball, they didn't really play anybody. Teddy Bridgewater did struggle as the backup, or the expected backup quarterback for the Lions this season. Likely doesn't mean anything, but if something were to happen to Goff and Bridgewater doesn't really take a step forward, I would be a little bit concerned about all the pass-catching weapons in Detroit. Next up here, we've got the Dolphins at the Texans. In this one, my main takeaways here were for the Miami running back situation. We saw Devon Achane continue to operate behind Salvon Ahmed and Myles Gaskin. On top of that, he left this game with a shoulder injury. It's likely going to sideline him for a couple weeks, and it really does just pretty much move him to the bottom of my draft board. He's not completely off it. I think you can take him at the very end of your drafts if you want, especially in deeper leagues, but he's likely not going to start with a very large role. He's going to have to carve one out over the course of the season, and we're seeing the injury concerns come to fruition with his size. It does make me a little bit more interested in drafting Jeff Wilson and Raheem Mostert. I would lean Raheem Mostert over Jeff Wilson if I had to make a pick, but I think they're both perfectly fine late-round draft picks right now. For the Texans, Dameon Pierce was given all of the work with the starters. He didn't really look great. I believe he had 5 carries for 13 yards. I think he caught 1 pass as well. Maybe not. I could be wrong on that. But if he's given a workhorse role and not really ceding snaps to Devin Singletary like I was worried about earlier on in this offseason, he's going to be an okay draft pick. I still don't think this offense is going to be very good. And if he is losing out on pass-catching work, it's going to be a big issue for him, but if he's getting all of the first and second down work, getting all the goal line work, I think he'll pay off at his ADP, but I really still don't see the upside for him, just given that he's going to be a part of a bad offense and probably not operating as the primary pass catcher. Next up, we've got the Steelers at the Bills. In this one, Jaylen Warren, I just need to highlight here. He had a 62-yard touchdown run. He looked extremely explosive, and I think we're going to see him get a lot more work this season than what we saw last season. I think we might see a little bit closer to like a 60-40 split than what we saw last season, and he's coming on the field in the third down situations, the obvious passing situations, and it really does make me worried about Najee Harris this season. If Najee's not going to be on the field in the third down on third downs in the 2-minute offense, it's going to be a big issue for him. He has always been a guy that's not been very efficient on the ground, so he needs that volume. He needs to catch a lot of passes. He needs to get a lot of carries and score a lot of touchdowns to really pay off his ADP. And if he's not going to be super involved as a pass catcher, and who knows how good this offense is going to be, that's something that's going to be concerning for him. So Jaylen Warren moved up my draft board a little bit. Najee Harris moved down a little bit. I don't want to overreact too much to a little preseason usage, but it is something to keep in mind here. On top of that, Kenny Pickett continued to look good. He played very well in this one. He's completing like 80% of his passes in the preseason. He threw a really nice touchdown pass to Pat Freiermuth in this one. And honestly, the Steelers' offense as a whole looked really good. We're seeing them just be really efficient in this offense. They played against the Bills starting defense in this one and really did score very well. They scored 2 touchdowns on 2 drives. I expect the Steelers offense to be a little bit better than what it was last season. I'm not going to expect a huge leap forward. I still don't really believe in Kenny Pickett as a true answer for the Steelers at the quarterback position, but this could be good for the offense. It's making me a little bit more excited about guys like George Pickens, Pat Freiermuth, and Deontay Johnson, guys that do need this offense to improve if they're going to pay off at their ADPs. On the Bills side of the ball, they did play all their starters early, and they struggled very mightily. They had 3 drives with Josh Allen, didn't score at all. Just certainly reason to be a little bit of concern given all the turmoil so far this offseason surrounding Stephon Diggs. Despite all that, I don't think it's a real issue. They've got a history of being an elite offense. They've got an elite quarterback. They've got plenty of pass-catching weapons. I'm not really too worried about this Bills offense, but it is something to keep an eye on. On top of that, I will note that James Cook received pretty much all of the work with the Bills starters. It does make me a little bit more excited about drafting him in the middle rounds right now, although he really hasn't looked great so far, and I still think he's going to cede goal line work to one of the bigger backs in Damian Harris or Latavius Murray, so I don't think the true ceiling is there for James Cook, but I think he's a perfectly fine draft pick where he's going right now. Next up, we've got the Colts at the Bears. Anthony Richardson got the night off in this one, given that he's the clear starter for the Indianapolis Colts. He will be starting for them week 1. All of the Colts' backups running backs looked absolutely brutal, and that's especially relevant now that the Colts have just today given Jonathan Taylor permission to seek a trade. We'll see what really happens with that. They want to get a first-round draft pick for him. Jonathan Taylor is obviously going to want to get a big contract on top of that, so I don't know how many teams are going to be super interested in making a trade like that happen, but if the Colts were to trade Jonathan Taylor, I would fully expect the Colts to be assigning another running back. I think Kareem Hunt would be an obvious candidate to be a really useful part of this offense and a guy that honestly would be immediately usable in fantasy and a guy that should probably start being drafted right now. A guy that deserves to be drafted at like the end of your drafts right now, would have a clear role, would be the clear number 1 running back in Indianapolis if something like that were to happen. For the Bears, Khalil Herbert was given the night off, which shows pretty clearly that he is the starting running back to own in Chicago. Roschon Johnson did well in his place. I think Roschon Johnson is a pretty talented player, and we could still see Roschon Johnson operate as the pass-catching running back in this offense, but Khalil Herbert's the clear guy to own. I think he's definitely going to be the 1A at least at a minimum, and he's a guy that I think really should be higher up on draft boards right now. A guy that I'm definitely targeting like that 8th, 9th round right now for sure. Next up, we've got the Bucs at the Jets in this one. Kyle Trask played very late into the game with the third-string quarterback John Wolford leaving with an apparent neck injury. Hopefully, Wolford ends up being okay, but it does prove here that Baker Mayfield's going to be the starting quarterback for the Buccaneers, showing that they were more willing to put Kyle Trask at risk late into a preseason game than they were Baker. Sean Tucker, their undrafted rookie running back, looked really good in this one. He was only undrafted because of a medical condition that made him really just slip in the draft and ended up going undrafted. But he's a really talented player. I think he could be the clear, capable 1B to Rachaad White in this offense. He's a guy that if you want to be drafted in late drafts right now, I think you're more than willing to do that. And on top of that, in Dynasty, he'd be a guy that go take a look at your waiver wire. He could be a guy that is worth adding. The Jets running back room behind Breece Hall and Dalvin Cook is pretty muddy. Michael Carter got the night off. Israel Abanikanda left the game with an injury, and Bam Knight looked pretty mediocre. So they're going to have to make some decisions at the running back spot. All 3 of those guys are guys that you would normally expect to make the roster, but I think there will probably be a surprise cut or maybe like a late off-season trade for like a 7th round pick or something for one of these guys. Next, we've got the Chiefs at the Cardinals. In this one, the Chiefs' backup quarterbacks all played really well, along with Patrick Mahomes, who played well. There was pretty much still a rotating carousel of starting wide receivers for this team. We saw MVS, Sky Moore, and Richie James all see meaningful snaps, along with Justin Ross, Rashee Rice. They all got snaps with Patrick Mahomes in this one. I would expect MVS and Sky Moore to be the clear 1 and 2 here, but Justin Watson also got on the field with the starters. This is going to be a pretty mucky wide receiver room, and I really don't have a whole lot of confidence in any one of them. Sky Moore would be my choice if I had to make a pick out of one of these guys right now, but I don't think I'm really trying to spend a top 10 or a single digit round pick on any of these guys, so I find myself baiting the Chiefs wide receiver room. And Rashee Rice, however, did ball out. He did have like 8 catches for 96 yards. He's their 2nd round draft pick this season. I do really like the talent. He should be somebody that we keep an eye on. If you want to take a flyer on him really late in your drafts, I think that's totally fine. For the Cardinals, Keontae Ingram played really well. He pretty much cemented his role as the clear backup for the Cardinals behind James Conner. And then I'm also going to note Marquise Brown did play in this one, and Michael Wilson was still the clear starter opposite him. He's the clear number 2 wide receiver in this offense. It seems like we're going to see Rondale Moore operating out of the slot, and Michael Wilson's a guy that's definitely worth drafting really late in drafts right now. They like him a lot. He's had a really solid offseason. He was a 3rd round draft pick this season. He's definitely a guy that you could be drafting really late and could surprise people this season. Next, we've got the Patriots at the Packers. Jordan Love looked really good in this one. We saw Romeo Doubs continue his strong offseason. He had a 42-yard catch in this one. And honestly, I think it's going to be pretty clear that Romeo Doubs has got a legitimate shot to be the number one target in this offense. I don't know that he'll be the number one yard guy or the number one touchdown guy, but he gets open. He's a really quality player. I think the Packers like him quite a bit. And he's a guy that I really do think should be being drafted right now. He's a super great bargain in drafts, and especially in like deeper leagues where you just need a guy that you can play in a given week. I think Romeo Doubs can be that for you. We also pretty much have it just written out for us what the starting lineups are going to be for this Packers offense. Romeo Doubs and Christian Watson each played every snap for the starters. Jaden Reed came in for all of the 3 wide receiver set snaps. Luke Musgrave was the clear starting tight end for the Packers, playing all of those snaps. And then we're still going to see that rotating carousel at the running back position between Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon. So we know who these starters are going to be for this team. It does make it pretty easy to know who we want to pick. I think Jaden Reed's a perfectly fine late-round flyer. Christian Watson is a fine, like, top 5-round pick, although I tend to be fading him because I'm pretty much higher on Romeo Doubs right now. Not higher in the sense that I would be drafting Romeo Doubs ahead of Christian Watson, but I just think the value is more there for Romeo Doubs right now. For the Patriots side of the ball, they really didn't look all that great on offense. They couldn't pass protect very well, but we saw Ramondre Stevenson get in the game. He did have a 2-yard rushing touchdown. We could see him maybe trying to prove that he's got a quality goal line role and that he can be a capable back there. I do expect it to be more of a split at the goal line than what a lot of people are expecting. I don't think Ezekiel Elliott is any better than Ramondre at that role, so I don't think they'll be taking Ramondre off the field to put Zeke in those situations. Kayshon Butte made a really nice play. He had a 42-yard receiving touchdown on this one. One of the few explosive athletes that it looks like the Patriots might have. He was a projected top 10 pick when he first entered college for LSU. He obviously had a struggled career in college, didn't do a whole lot so far, but the talent's there. He's been a really high-end prospect, and I think he's just got a shot to at least make this roster and be relevant. And then Kendrick Bourne played really well in this one as well. Bill Belichick spoke well about Kendrick Bourne over the last couple of weeks as well, so I think we could see Kendrick Bourne earn some playing time as well with the Patriots offense. Next up, we've got the Titans at the Vikings. Neither team played their starters in this one, although Malik Willis did play pretty much the entire game for the Tennessee Titans. He added 91 rushing yards to his performance, although he didn't look all that great through the air. The Titans' offense, however, should be better this season if Ryan Tannehill were to miss time than what they were last season. Malik Willis looks like he's taken some significant strides forward, although he's still not really ready to be an NFL quarterback. Tyjae Spears had an explosive touchdown run. He is the clear handcuff to own in Tennessee behind Derrick Henry. He's a much better option than we've had in the past. I think we could see him see a few touches a week. Obviously, he's not going to be taking Derrick Henry off the field, but he's much more capable than what they've had in the past and could certainly be okay for them this season. And if something were to happen to Derrick Henry, he'd be a nice pickup. All of the backup running backs for Minnesota struggled. Tyson Chandler, Dwayne McBride, another one really surprised anybody. They didn't play well. It does add some fuel to the fire that they've been looking at Kareem Hunt. I think that they could be a team that could add another running back in the next couple of weeks. And if they do that, like a guy like Kareem Hunt would pretty significantly impact my outlook on Alexander Mattison. I'd have to knock him down to way later in the draft. So keep an eye on that. It's a little bit scary to be drafting Alexander Mattison right now, but I think it's still okay where he's going. But just keep an eye on that. And obviously that's why we have our draft late in the offseason if possible. Next up, we've got another fun game in the Broncos at the 49ers. The Broncos played their starters for one drive. Actually, the Niners played their starters for one drive, and they looked great. Deebo Samuel was the focal point of the offense. He received the first 2 targets, actually maybe the first 3 targets in the offense, although I will note that Christian McCaffrey and George Kittle didn't suit up, so it does obviously concentrate the target tree for this offense if those 2 guys on the field. Brock Purdy started in this one, and he looked quite good. He completed 4 of 5 passes for 65 yards. Looked like a capable player. Was a little mobile as well. I think he's going to be the clear-cut starter for the 49ers, and obviously they look good. They should be ready to go week 1. Russell Wilson looked much more mobile and really played well in his one drive with the starters. It was obvious right away that he has lost that weight this offseason. He looks like a much more explosive athlete, like a guy that's running like it's 4 years ago. I really do think Russell Wilson could be one of the steals, one of the best late-round quarterbacks you can draft right now. If he's going to offer that kind of rushing floor, they ran a read option for him. He gained like 20 yards on it before it was called back due to a penalty that really didn't impact the play. He had a 17-yard scramble for a first down. He's going to be a guy that could offer 500, 600 rushing yards on the ground this season, and if he does that and goes to any sort of relevance as a passer like he was in the last couple of years before going to Denver, he's going to be a really quality fantasy pick, and I think he's a guy that you should certainly be targeting if you wait on quarterback. Javonte Williams was back for this team. He looked good. He was also super involved in the receiving game. He had 5 targets and caught 4 passes. A guy that I do expect this offense to really throw the ball to their running backs quite a bit. It is important to note that Samaje Perine came on the field for those 3rd and long situations. I would expect that to be the situation as well, just given what Perine has done over the course of his career, taking those 3rd down snaps. And they did pretty much operate in a 50-50 timeshare outside of that. So I think that we do need to pump the brakes on like a top 15 season for Javonte, clearly. I think it's going to be a pretty clear split for this offense between those two, and unless the offense really takes a huge step forward, I do prefer the value of Perine to Javonte, and I don't really think either guy can be a top 20 guy unless the offense is just insane this season. It's also clear that Marvin Mims is the number 3 wide receiver for the Denver Broncos. He operated as the third most utilized wide receiver in this offense. He's their second-round draft pick as well this season. He's going to be good. He'll have a couple really nice spike weeks. He's a really talented player, and I really like him right now. And he's a guy that you should be drafting really late in drafts because of his value right now. Next up, we've got the Raiders at the Rams. Jimmy G looked really good in his debut. He performed well. We saw Devontae Adams play one snap for whatever reason, so we're just going to assume he didn't play in this one. Jacoby Myers played all the snaps with the starters. He's going to be a guy that, you can draft around like round 12, round 11, and just play him if you need to. He doesn't really inspire me at all. I don't think there's any real upside there, but he's a guy that you can play on any given week if you need to. Aiden O'Connell, the rookie quarterback for the Las Vegas Raiders. They drafted him in the 4th round. Had a really solid performance in week 1 of the preseason and really had another strong outing again. He's looked really good for them this offseason. He's out of Purdue. He's a pretty capable passer there. He obviously doesn't offer much on the ground at all, but he could be a very capable quarterback for them if something were to happen to Jimmy G. I don't think I would really downgrade the pass catchers at all if Jimmy G went down, so it does give me a little bit more confidence drafting guys like Devontae Adams, knowing that there is a capable backup there. Reports came out this morning that Josh Jacobs will be ending his holdout ahead of week 1. This does really just make sense. It's certainly what I'd expect to happen. It doesn't make financial sense for Josh Jacobs to miss games. It's just a bad idea for him. I fully expect him to come back, and he's perfectly good at being a draft pick at like the middle of round 2. Even if you want to take him at the end of round 1, I totally get it. The Rams benched all their starters. Nothing really to take away here, although Stetson Bennett did play. He threw a pick 6 early on, bounced back a little bit, but just looked pretty mediocre. Don't expect huge things out of him this season, and really, obviously, the Rams just could be a dumpster fire for sure. Next, we've got the Cowboys at the Seahawks. JSN played really well in this one. He had a really nice catch on a back shoulder throw that brought him towards the middle of the field from Drew Lock. He just looked really good. He's going to be a really talented weapon for this offense, and honestly, it's about time we start sort of considering the possibility that maybe by the second half of the season, he even emerges as the number 1 target in this offense. I'm very excited about JSN, although I do still have him ranked as the number 3 player in this offense, but I totally understand where he's going, and if you want to take him as early as like the 7th round, I think that's a perfectly fine draft pick. Zach Charbonnet played in this one, and he played well in limited reps, although it is important to note that DJ Dallas did come on the field for 3rd downs with the starters. This could really just make this whole backfield a bit of a mess if Zach Charbonnet splitting touches on 1st and 2nd down with Kenneth Walker, and then if DJ Dallas is giving the 3rd down work, it could be a bit of a disaster there. Deuce Vaughn continued to shine, although he did operate as like the 4th running back for this team with Tony Pollard missing. He made another really nice play. He continues to make guys miss, and I think he's going to be a guy that's really hard for them to keep off the field once the season gets going. Jalen Tolbert played really well in this one. He's continuing to build upon his really strong offseason. Obviously, last season for him as a rookie was a bit of a dud, but he has played really well in training camp so far, and he continued to show it in this preseason game. So I don't really think Tolbert's got much upside. He's pretty clearly the wide receiver 4 on this team, but if something were to happen to one of the top 3 guys, he'd be a guy that you could maybe play a couple weeks here or there this season. Next up, we've got the Saints at the Chargers. In this one, Kendre Miller looked absolutely fantastic. He was dealing with that knee injury that we really thought was going to keep him out, maybe even past week 1, but he came back already. He played in this preseason game. He looked really good. He made a really fantastic diving catch along the sideline on a really good throw from Jameis Winston, and then he made a really nice run after that, scoring a 7-yard touchdown immediately after. He's going to have a real opportunity to shine in those first 3 weeks of the season. I think there's an opportunity for him as a 21-year-old to pretty easily overtake Jamal Williams as a 28-year-old running back, as the number 2 running back on this team. I still think he's got a long way to go before he can overtake Alvin Kamara, but he'd be a guy that really does have an opportunity for touches. Both the running backs ahead of him are quite old. There's certainly potential for injury with those guys. So if you want to draft Kendre Miller really late in drafts, I think he's a perfectly good 13th round draft pick right now. Jameis Winston looked really good as a backup quarterback for them. He's more than serviceable, and I think this offense really wouldn't struggle all that much if Derek Carr were to miss time. Isaiah Spiller does look to be the clear backup to Austin Eckler in this season. I do think he's totally worth being drafted really late in drafts if you really want that handcuff for Eckler. And then Quentin Johnson looked really good again. He's a guy that I've been targeting quite a bit in the middle of the late rounds in drafts, and a guy that I really think is going to have a really great second half of the season especially. And finally, we've got the Ravens at the Commanders. Sam Howell played extremely well in this one. He completed 75% of his passes, completed 2 touchdown passes, had 0 interceptions, just looked really poised. The offensive line looked really great and gave him plenty of time to throw the ball downfield. He did consistently look to push the ball downfield as well, despite taking the check downs when they were there for him. Both Commanders running backs were involved in the passing game, although in the 2-minute offense and on third down, it was clear that Antonio Gibson is that third down running back for them. Antonio Gibson also caught a touchdown. He looked really good in this one. Terry McLaurin left the game with a toe injury. He was ruled out at halftime. The x-rays came back negative on that toe injury, but there is still some concern there. We should keep an eye on it. If this ends up being a turf toe situation, we could be worried about him potentially missing week 1, and we should need to keep an eye on it. I don't want to overreact to anything just yet before we know more. On the Ravens side of the ball, most of their starters didn't play. Nothing to really write home about, but Zay Flowers played early on with the offense. He looked really good. He caught a touchdown pass, had 2 catches for 36 yards, I believe, and I just really like Zay Flowers. He's a really talented route runner. A lot of comparisons are being made to Antonio Brown. Obviously, Antonio Brown is a Hall of Famer. He's a guy that I'm not going to really want to compare Zay Flowers to, but the comparisons are there. They're both really undersized players that are really elite route runners, guys that can do a lot with the ball in open space, and I think that Zay Flowers should really slot in as the wide receiver 1 for this team, and I'm really excited about where he's going. He's one of my top targets in the middle to late rounds right now. That'll do it for the Week 2 preseason recap. If there's anything that you guys think I missed or anything that you want me to touch on a little bit more, do feel free to let me know in the comments. I'm happy to give you guys my opinions, make sure that I covered everything, and make sure I don't leave anything too important out. If you guys did like the video, I really would appreciate it if you give it a thumbs up. It really helps with the algorithm, really helps know that I'm doing a good job, and just really helps support the channel after putting all this work in. Obviously, it takes a lot of time to go through all these games and take away these key takeaways. So if you can support the channel there, just giving it a like is one of the best ways to do that. If you haven't subscribed to the channel already, I really think you should do that. There are going to be videos coming out every single day throughout the entire course of the off season. We're putting out several videos a week, of course, during the regular season as well, to do everything we can to help you guys win your leagues this season. And subscribing is going to be the best way to stay in touch. Make sure you can keep getting all those videos and make sure you can really dominate your leagues this season. Up next, I'll be doing the optimal draft strategy from picks 7 through 9. Sort of took like a week break doing those optimal draft strategies, but now I got to get these next 2 done just so that you guys have those before your draft. So I'll get that out tomorrow as well, just so you guys have that. And then obviously we've got more videos coming up as well. We'll have must avoid players. We'll get into some more draft strategy stuff. We'll be doing these weekly recaps as well again next week, and just stay tuned for all that. So lots more to come. Really excited making these videos. Really having a lot of fun. And I really appreciate all the support. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll catch you next time. Thank you guys for watching. If you haven't already, please be sure to subscribe to the channel, like the video, check out these other videos here if you haven't. If you want more content, please feel free to follow me on Twitter at RealSteelFFB. I'll be more active on there as the season goes on. Thanks. Catch you later.